The morning sun cast long shadows across Fort Henderson as Captain Sarah Mitchell adjusted her uniform for the third time. At 28, she stood barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, with auburn hair pulled back in regulation style, and green eyes that held a determination most people overlooked. Today marked her first day commanding Bravo Company, and she could already feel the weight of skeptical stares from the soldiers gathering for morning formation. Sarah had worked twice as hard as her male counterparts throughout her military career. While they relied on natural physical advantages, she compensated with strategic thinking, technical expertise, and an unshakable resolve that had carried her through Army Ranger School, where only 3% of participants were women. Her graduation had made local headlines, but she knew that achievements on paper meant nothing if she couldn't earn respect in the field. The soldiers of Bravo Company stood in formation, their conversations dying to whispers as she approached. Most had served under Captain Rodriguez, a 6'2" former linebacker who commanded through intimidation and volume. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson, a 20-year veteran with arms like tree trunks, barely concealed his smirk as he called the formation to attention. "Good morning, soldiers," Sarah's voice carried clearly across the parade ground, projecting confidence she wasn't entirely sure she felt. "I'm Captain Mitchell, and I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if someone my size can lead a company of infantry soldiers." The directness caught several soldiers off guard. They had expected either false bravado or defensive explanations. Instead, Sarah continued with measured honesty. "I won't lie to you. I can't bench press 300 pounds or intimidate anyone with my physical presence. But I can outshoot most of you, outthink all of you, and I guarantee I won't ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself." Private First Class David Chun, fresh from basic training, found himself leaning forward slightly. There was something magnetic about her quiet confidence, different from the shouting and posturing he'd expected from military leadership. "Over the next few weeks, we'll be preparing for joint training exercises with Allied forces. This isn't summer camp, and it's not a place for anyone looking for easy assignments. We'll train harder than you've trained before, but you'll be better soldiers for it." After dismissing formation, Sarah made her way to the company headquarters, a modest building that housed administrative offices and briefing rooms. First Sergeant Maria Santos, a compact woman with 22 years of service, waited with a stack of personnel files and a knowing look. "They're testing you already," Santos said without preamble. "Thompson's been telling anyone who'll listen that you won't last a month. Says the Army's going soft, putting political correctness ahead of combat effectiveness." Sarah nodded, unsurprised. She'd faced similar attitudes throughout her career, though never quite so openly. "What else should I know? Bravo Company has good soldiers, but they've been coasting. Rodriguez was old school, but he got complacent toward the end. Training standards slipped. Discipline became inconsistent. Some of these men haven't been properly challenged in years. And they think a woman half their size certainly won't challenge them." "Exactly." Santos pulled out a training schedule. "The good news is you've got natural leaders among the squad leaders. Sergeant Williams in 2nd Squad runs a tight ship. Sergeant Patterson in 3rd Squad is green, but eager. The problem is Thompson and his cronies in 1st Squad. They've been the unofficial power structure for too long." Sarah studied the personnel files, memorizing names, faces, and service records. She had learned early in her career that respect wasn't given. It was earned through consistent demonstration of competence and character. The challenge was earning that respect before losing the authority her rank provided. The following morning brought the company's first physical training session under her command. Sarah arrived 15 minutes before the prescribed time, already warmed up and ready. When soldiers began gathering, they found her completing pull-ups on the exercise bar with perfect form, her movements controlled and efficient. Thompson arrived with several soldiers from 1st Squad, his expression shifting from amusement to surprise as he watched Sarah complete her 20th consecutive pull-up before dropping to the ground without apparent strain. "Not bad for a desk jockey," he commented loud enough for others to hear. Sarah turned to face him directly. "I'm curious about your opinion, Sergeant Thompson. What makes an effective leader?" The question caught him off guard, clearly expecting either offense or defensive posturing. "Experience, proven ability under pressure, physical capability to do the job." Interesting perspective. I'd add intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to inspire rather than intimidate. She gestured toward the assembled soldiers. Why don't we find out which approach works better? What followed was 2 hours of intensive physical training that pushed every soldier to their limits. Sarah participated in every exercise, running alongside the slowest soldiers to encourage them while maintaining conversation, demonstrating proper form for those struggling, and completing every repetition without complaint. By the end of the session, even Thompson's supporters began showing grudging respect. Captain Mitchell wasn't the pushover they'd expected, nor was she trying to prove herself through false machismo. She simply did her job with quiet competence. The real test came 3 days later during weapons training. The company gathered at the rifle range for quarterly qualification, and Sarah noticed several soldiers watching her more closely than usual. Word had spread that she claimed to be a superior marksman, and many remained skeptical. Master Sergeant Patricia Hawkins, the range safety officer, had worked with Sarah during advanced marksmanship training 2 years earlier. She watched with interest as Sarah methodically prepared her weapon, adjusting the sights with practiced precision. "Gentlemen," Hawkins announced, "your company commander has requested to demonstrate proper shooting technique before you begin qualification." The soldiers gathered behind the firing line as Sarah assumed a prone position. The targets were placed at 300 yards, significantly further than standard qualification distances. Without fanfare or explanation, Sarah began firing measured shots, her breathing controlled and movements economical. After 10 rounds, Hawkins called for target evaluation. The spotting scope revealed a tight grouping within a space smaller than a silver dollar, with 8 shots touching the bullseye and 2 shots within the 9 ring. "Holy shit," whispered Private Rodriguez, immediately looking embarrassed at his outburst. "Indeed," Sarah said calmly as she cleared her weapon. "Marksmanship isn't about raw strength or intimidation. It's about discipline, technique, and consistent practice. The same principles apply to leadership." Thompson stepped forward, his skepticism finally giving way to professional curiosity. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, ma'am?" "Same place I learned everything else, Sergeant. Through dedication and refusal to accept limitations others tried to impose on me." The afternoon brought tactical exercises designed to evaluate squad-level coordination and leadership under stress. Sarah had designed scenarios that would challenge conventional thinking while revealing each soldier's strengths and weaknesses. During the third exercise, Second Squad found themselves pinned down by simulated enemy fire with limited ammunition and no apparent escape route. Sergeant Williams, their squad leader, had defaulted to defensive positions while calling for reinforcement. Sarah approached from behind, staying low to avoid the laser tag sensors that registered hits. "Sergeant Williams, what's your assessment?" "We're outnumbered and outgunned, ma'am. Without support, we're sitting ducks." "Look at your terrain again. What do you see that you haven't considered?" Williams scanned the area with fresh eyes, finally, noticing a drainage culvert that could provide concealed movement to the enemy's flank. "We could use that ditch for an assault approach." "Excellent. Now, who in your squad has the best close-quarters combat skills?" The question sparked immediate discussion among squad members. Chin stepped forward hesitantly. "I qualified expert with the saw, ma'am, and I'm small enough to move through tight spaces quickly." "Outstanding. Sergeant Williams, how would you coordinate a flanking maneuver using Chin's skills and that terrain feature?" What followed was a textbook example of adaptive leadership. Williams reorganized his squad, using Chin's speed and weapon skills to create a diversion while the rest of the squad maneuvered through the culvert. The simulated enemy force was eliminated within minutes. Sarah nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, all of you. Notice what happened here. Instead of accepting the situation as hopeless, you adapted your thinking and used available resources creatively. That's how small units win against superior forces." As the exercises continued, patterns began emerging. Soldiers who had initially dismissed their new commander found themselves seeking her input on tactical problems. Her suggestions consistently proved effective, and her ability to identify individual strengths within each squad impressed even veteran non-commissioned officers. Evening brought the traditional after-training gathering at Murphy's Bar, an establishment just outside base gates where soldiers had unwound for decades. Sarah rarely participated in such social activities, preferring to maintain professional distance. But First Sergeant Santos convinced her that appearance was important for unit cohesion. The bar buzzed with conversation as soldiers rehashed the day's exercises. Sarah sat with Santos and several squad leaders, nursing a single beer while listening to discussions about tactical modifications and training improvements. The atmosphere was more relaxed than she'd experienced since taking command. Captain Mitchell called out Private Chin from across the room. "Sergeant Thompson says you were in Ranger School. Is that true?" The bar grew quiet as all conversation stopped. Ranger School was legendary for its difficulty, and few soldiers personally knew anyone who had completed the program. "I graduated Ranger School 3 years ago," Sarah confirmed simply. "What was the hardest part?" asked Private Martinez, genuine curiosity overcoming military protocol. Sarah considered the question carefully. "The mental challenge. Your body can endure more than you think possible, but your mind will try to convince you to quit long before your physical limits are reached. The instructors are experts at finding psychological pressure points. How did you deal with it?" This question came from Corporal Stevens, one of Thompson's supporters. "Same way you deal with any challenge. You break it down into manageable pieces, focus on the next immediate goal, and refuse to consider failure as an option. When you're carrying a 100-pound pack through swamp water at 2 in the morning, you don't think about completing the entire mission. You think about reaching the next checkpoint." Thompson leaned back in his chair, studying her with new interest. "Ma'am, can I ask you something directly?" "Go ahead, Sergeant. Why did you choose infantry? You could have gone intelligence, logistics, any number of fields where being small might actually be an advantage." The question wasn't hostile, but it carried weight. Every soldier in the bar waited for her response. "Because infantry is where leadership matters most. In support roles, you manage systems and processes. In infantry, you're responsible for lives. Every decision you make directly affects whether soldiers go home to their families. That responsibility requires the highest level of competence and character." She paused, scanning the faces around her. "I chose infantry because I wanted to prove that effective leadership comes from competence and integrity, not intimidation and volume. Too many soldiers have suffered under leaders who confused authority with leadership." The honesty of her response created an uncomfortable moment of silence. Several soldiers exchanged glances, recognizing truth in her words based on their own experiences with ineffective commanders. "Besides," Sarah added with a slight smile, "someone told me women weren't tough enough for infantry. I've never been good at accepting other people's limitations." The tension broke as several soldiers chuckled appreciatively. Corporal Stevens raised his beer in a mock salute. "To proving people wrong. To earning what you get," Sarah corrected, raising her own glass. As the evening progressed, Sarah found herself in smaller group conversations, discussing everything from tactical innovations to family concerns. She listened more than she spoke, asking thoughtful questions and offering practical advice when requested. Private Chin approached as the gathering wound down. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you for today. When Sergeant Williams asked about close-quarters skills, you made me feel like my abilities mattered." "Your abilities do matter, Chun. Every soldier brings different strengths to the unit. Good leaders identify those strengths and use them effectively." "My father was career military," Chin continued. "He always said the best officers were the ones who made soldiers want to follow them, not the ones who demanded it." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "Your father sounds like a wise man. What branch did he serve?" "Marines. 3 tours in Afghanistan. He died in a car accident 2 years ago. I'm sorry for your loss. From what I've observed, he raised a fine soldier." The simple acknowledgement meant more to Chun than elaborate sympathy. Sarah had a gift for saying exactly what people needed to hear without excessive emotion or false comfort. Walking back to base, Santos fell into step beside her commander. "Not bad for your first week. You've got their attention, and you're starting to earn respect." "It's a beginning," Sarah agreed. "But Thompson and his supporters are still testing boundaries. The real challenges are coming." "What do you mean?" Sarah paused at the base gate, showing her identification to the guard. "Thompson strikes me as someone who needs to establish dominance through direct confrontation. He's been watching, evaluating, looking for the right moment to challenge my authority publicly." "You think he'll try something stupid?" "I think he'll try something he believes is smart. The question is whether I'll be ready for it." Santos studied her commander's profile in the streetlight. You've been ready for this your entire career, haven't you? Sarah smiled grimly. Every day since I decided that other people's expectations wouldn't define my limitations. As they walked toward the officer quarters, both women knew that the following weeks would bring increasingly difficult tests. Thompson represented more than personal animosity. He embodied institutional resistance to change that had frustrated military reform efforts for decades. But Sarah Mitchell had never backed down from a fight, especially when that fight involved proving that competence and character mattered more than size and volume. The real battle for Bravo Company's respect was just beginning, and she intended to win it on her own terms. The base settled into nighttime quiet as Sarah reviewed training schedules and personnel evaluations in her quarters. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to demonstrate leadership, and new tests of her resolve. Outside her window, Fort Henderson slept under star-filled skies, unaware that within its boundaries, a quiet revolution in military leadership was taking its first tentative steps. Captain Sarah Mitchell was about to prove that the most dangerous opponents are often the ones people underestimate. 2 weeks into Sarah's command, the atmosphere within Bravo Company had shifted noticeably. Morning formations ran with crisp precision, training exercises challenged soldiers beyond their comfort zones, and even the most skeptical veterans admitted their new commander knew her business. But beneath the surface improvements, tension simmered between progressive soldiers embracing change and traditionalists resisting it. Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson remained the unofficial leader of resistance, though his opposition had become more subtle since Sarah's marksmanship demonstration. Rather than open defiance, he employed passive resistance, following orders to the letter while undermining her authority through strategic questioning and barely concealed skepticism. The morning briefing revealed new complications that would test everyone's resolve. Colonel Patricia Williams, the battalion commander, entered Sarah's office with orders that would push Bravo Company beyond routine training into genuine operational readiness assessment. Captain Mitchell, you're taking your company to the National Training Center at Fort Irwin for joint exercises with British Royal Marines and German Bundeswehr units, Colonel Williams announced, settling into the chair across from Sarah's desk. This isn't routine training. NATO headquarters is evaluating multinational unit integration for future deployments. Sarah reviewed the briefing documents, noting the complexity of coordinating 3 different military cultures and operational doctrines. What's our specific role in the exercise? Your company will serve as the American infantry component of a combined task force. The scenario involves urban operations, counterinsurgency tactics, and rapid response to multiple simultaneous threats. Success requires seamless integration between national units. And if we fail to integrate effectively? Colonel Williams leaned forward, her expression serious. Then, NATO questions American ability to lead multinational operations, and your company gets labeled as a developmental unit requiring additional training before deployment readiness. The stakes couldn't have been clearer. Sarah's leadership would be evaluated not just by her own chain of command, but by allied military observers whose reports would influence American military reputation internationally. How much time do we have to prepare? 3 weeks. The exercise lasts 10 days, with the first week focused on integration training and the second week conducting operational scenarios. After Colonel Williams departed, Sarah assembled her senior non-commissioned officers for emergency planning. The conference room filled with squad leaders, section chiefs, and support personnel, their expressions ranging from eager anticipation to barely concealed worry. First Sergeant Santos opened the briefing with characteristic directness. Gentlemen, we've just received orders that will either make or break this company's reputation. Captain Mitchell will explain the mission. Sarah outlined the NATO exercise requirements, emphasizing both the opportunity and the potential consequences of failure. This exercise will test everything we've trained for and several things we haven't. Working with foreign military units requires cultural sensitivity, tactical flexibility, and flawless communication. Sergeant Thompson raised his hand, his expression skeptical. Ma'am, with respect, how do we coordinate with units that don't speak English as their primary language and use different equipment than us? Excellent question, Sergeant. We'll address language barriers through liaison officers and standardized NATO terminology. Equipment differences require cross-training and interoperability protocols. But what happens when things go wrong under pressure? Thompson pressed. In combat, soldiers revert to their training. If our training doesn't match theirs, coordination breaks down. Sarah recognized the legitimate tactical concern beneath Thompson's challenge, which is why we're going to train harder than this company has ever trained. Every soldier will learn basic German and British military terminology. Every squad leader will understand foreign unit organization and capabilities. The room grew quiet as soldiers realized the magnitude of preparation required. Corporal Stevens from 1st Squad voiced what everyone was thinking. "Ma'am, that's a lot to learn in 3 weeks." "It is," Sarah agreed. "But failure isn't acceptable. We're representing not just Bravo Company or Fort Henderson, but American military competence to our closest allies. Every mistake we make reflects on thousands of soldiers who weren't given this opportunity." Over the following week, Bravo Company's training schedule intensified dramatically. Soldiers found themselves learning foreign military ranks, studying British and German tactical manuals, and practicing coordinated movements with simulated Allied units. Sarah led by example, spending evenings memorizing German military terminology and studying British Royal Marine operational procedures. She consulted with military attaches, reviewing cultural sensitivities that could affect unit cohesion during joint operations. The physical demands increased proportionally. Sarah instituted new fitness standards that pushed every soldier toward peak conditioning, recognizing that international exercises would test endurance as much as tactical skill. Private Chin struggled initially with the increased pace, but his determination impressed senior soldiers who had previously dismissed him as too young and inexperienced. During one particularly challenging obstacle course, he collapsed from exhaustion 50 yards from the finish line. Instead of accepting defeat, Chin forced himself upright and stumbled forward, blood streaming from scraped knees and torn uniform. Soldiers who had been laughing moments earlier fell silent as they watched him complete the course through sheer force of will. Sarah appeared beside him as he crossed the finish line, offering water and quiet encouragement. "Outstanding effort, Chun. That's exactly the determination we'll need at Fort Irwin." Thompson approached as Chun recovered his breath. "Kid's got heart," he admitted grudgingly. "Still don't know if heart's enough for what we're facing." "Heart's what separates good soldiers from great ones," Sarah replied. "Skill can be taught. Courage and determination either exist or they don't." The second week brought tactical exercises designed to simulate multinational coordination challenges. Sarah arranged for soldiers from other companies to role-play British and German units, complete with accents and foreign military procedures. The initial attempts proved disastrous. Communication breakdowns led to tactical failures, cultural misunderstandings created interpersonal conflicts, and coordination errors resulted in simulated casualties that would have been catastrophic in actual operations. "This is hopeless," muttered Private Rodriguez after a particularly frustrating exercise. "We can't even coordinate with Americans pretending to be foreigners. How are we supposed to work with actual British and German soldiers?" Sarah overheard the comment, but chose not to address it directly. Instead, she called for an immediate after-action review, gathering the entire company in a circle on the training field. "What went wrong during that exercise?" she asked without preamble. Hands shot up around the circle. "Communication failures. Equipment confusion. Nobody understood the German signals." "All correct," Sarah acknowledged. "Now what went right?" The question surprised several soldiers who had focused entirely on failures. Sergeant Williams from 2nd Squad spoke up. When Rodriguez got separated from his team, Corporal Martinez improvised hand signals to guide him back. "Exactly. And when the radio malfunctioned, who found alternative communication methods?" "Chun jury-rigged the spare radio to work with the British frequency," admitted Sergeant Thompson. Sarah nodded approvingly. Both examples demonstrate soldiers adapting to unexpected situations instead of accepting failure. That's the mindset we need to develop. She stood and began pacing within the circle, making eye contact with every soldier. This exercise exposed problems we need to solve, but it also revealed capabilities we didn't know we had. Rodriguez's navigation skills, Martinez's initiative, Chin's technical knowledge. These strengths become force multipliers when properly coordinated. The discussion continued for 2 hours, with soldiers identifying both weaknesses requiring improvement and strengths that could compensate for Allied unit limitations. By the end, even the most pessimistic soldiers began seeing possibilities rather than obstacles. Training intensified during the final week before departure. Sarah implemented 24-hour exercises that tested endurance, adaptability, and unit cohesion under extreme stress. Soldiers found themselves operating on minimal sleep while coordinating complex multi-phase operations. The breakthrough came during a night assault exercise when everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Communications failed completely, navigation equipment malfunctioned, and simulated enemy forces adapted faster than anticipated. Instead of calling for reset or accepting defeat, individual soldiers began demonstrating initiative that impressed everyone observing. Chun crawled through muddy terrain to establish communication between separated elements. Martinez organized an impromptu casualty collection point when medical evacuation was delayed. Even Rodriguez, typically a follower, took charge of ammunition redistribution when supply lines broke down. Most significantly, Thompson began actively supporting Sarah's leadership instead of undermining it. When younger soldiers expressed doubts about their readiness, he reminded them of their improvements over previous weeks. 3 weeks ago, half of you couldn't find your equipment in broad daylight, Thompson told a group of discouraged privates. Tonight, you coordinated a successful assault in complete darkness with broken communications. Captain Mitchell knows what she's doing. The transformation wasn't lost on Sarah, who had watched Thompson's gradual shift from skeptical opposition to grudging support to active participation. During a brief pause in operations, she approached him directly. "Sergeant Thompson, I owe you an apology." His surprise was evident. "Ma'am, I assumed your resistance was purely personal. I didn't consider that you might have legitimate concerns about unit readiness and soldier safety." Thompson studied her for several moments. "Captain, I've served under commanders who prioritize their careers over their soldiers' lives. When you arrived, I thought you might be another ambitious officer looking for quick advancement. What changed your mind? Watching you eat the same lousy field rations, sleep in the same mud, and push yourself harder than you pushed us. Officers who care about themselves don't do that." The conversation was interrupted by approaching vehicles carrying the exercise evaluation team. As senior officers emerged to assess Bravo Company's performance, Sarah felt confident about her soldiers' capabilities for the first time since receiving the NATO assignment. Master Sergeant James Morrison, the evaluation team leader, spent 4 hours observing exercises and interviewing soldiers. His questions tested both technical knowledge and understanding of multinational coordination challenges. "Private Chun," Morrison called out, "explain how you would coordinate close air support with a British forward air controller using German radio equipment." Chin's response demonstrated not just technical knowledge, but cultural awareness of different national procedures and communication protocols. His answer impressed Morrison enough to prompt additional questions about improvisation and adaptability. Similar questioning revealed that even the most junior soldiers understood their roles within multinational frameworks and could adapt to equipment or communication failures. The evaluation concluded with Morrison's private discussion with Sarah about her company's readiness assessment. "Captain Mitchell, I've evaluated dozens of units preparing for multinational exercises. Your soldiers demonstrate exceptional tactical knowledge and cultural awareness for the training time available." "Thank you, Master Sergeant. What concerns do you have?" Morrison hesitated before responding honestly. "Your unit lacks combat experience. Training can simulate stress, but nothing truly prepares soldiers for life and death decision-making under enemy fire. The NATO exercise won't involve actual combat. No, but it will involve pressure that reveals how soldiers respond when their actions affect their comrades' lives. Exercise scenarios are designed to create stress levels comparable to combat operations." Sarah nodded, understanding the implication. "You're concerned that soldiers who perform well in training might freeze when consequences feel real." "Exactly. Your soldiers are technically proficient and well-prepared. The question is whether they can maintain that proficiency under psychological pressure they've never experienced." That evening, Sarah gathered her squad leaders for final preparations. The conversation focused not on tactical procedures, but on mental readiness for challenges that couldn't be simulated during training. Tomorrow we deploy to Fort Irwin, she began. Everything we've trained for will be tested under conditions designed to break unit cohesion and reveal leadership weaknesses. Sergeant Williams leaned forward. Ma'am, what should we expect that we haven't already practiced? Chaos, Sarah replied simply. Real pressure creates unexpected problems that require creative solutions. Exercise controllers will deliberately stress test our decision-making and unit coordination. How do we prepare for the unexpected? Asked Sergeant Patterson. By trusting your training, supporting each other, and remembering that every soldier in this company has capabilities they haven't fully realized yet. Thompson spoke up from the back of the room. Ma'am, the men are nervous. They know this exercise could make or break our reputation. Good, Sarah responded, surprising everyone. Soldiers who aren't nervous before important operations aren't taking them seriously enough. Fear keeps you alert and focused. What if we fail? The question came from Corporal Stevens, voicing everyone's deepest concern. Sarah considered her response carefully. Then, we fail having given everything we had. But we won't fail, because failure would require us to abandon everything we've learned about ourselves over the past month. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at soldiers preparing equipment for the following morning's deployment. When I took command of this company, most of you thought I was too small, too inexperienced, or too different to be effective. You measured my potential by conventional standards. Turning back to face her squad leaders, she continued. But conventional standards don't measure determination, intelligence, or adaptability. They don't account for soldiers who refuse to accept limitations others try to impose on them. The same principle applies to Bravo Company. Other units will measure our potential by conventional standards, age, experience, previous deployment history. They'll see average soldiers from an average company with no special qualifications. Thompson smiled grimly. They'll underestimate us the same way we underestimated you. Exactly. And by the time they realize their mistake, we'll have already proven that competence and character matter more than reputation and appearance. The briefing concluded with final equipment checks and coordination of transportation to Fort Irwin. As squad leaders departed to prepare their soldiers, Sarah remained alone in the conference room, reviewing exercise scenarios and potential complications. First Sergeant Santos returned after ensuring all preparations were complete. Captain, the company's ready. Equipment's loaded, soldiers are rested, and everyone knows their responsibilities. How's morale? Mixed. Nervous excitement mostly. The younger soldiers are eager to prove themselves. Veterans are cautious, but confident. And Thompson? Santos smiled. Thompson's been telling everyone that Bravo Company is going to surprise some people at Fort Irwin. He's become your biggest supporter. Sarah nodded, satisfied but not surprised. Thompson's transformation reflected the company's overall development. Skepticism had given way to cautious optimism, then to genuine confidence based on demonstrated competence. Maria, I want you to know that regardless of what happens at Fort Irwin, this company has already exceeded every expectation. The soldiers we're taking tomorrow bear no resemblance to the unit I inherited 6 weeks ago. Credit goes to you for that transformation. Sarah shook her head. Credit goes to soldiers who chose to challenge themselves rather than accept limitations. Leadership just provides direction and opportunity. As they prepared to leave the building, Santos posed a final question. Captain, what's your honest assessment of our chances? Sarah paused at the door, considering her response. 6 weeks ago, I would have said we had no chance. Today, I believe we're going to remind everyone why they should never underestimate determined soldiers with something to prove. The following morning brought controlled chaos as Bravo Company loaded equipment and boarded transportation for the journey to Fort Irwin. Soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their conversations mixing excitement with nervous energy. Private Chin approached Sarah as the convoy prepared to depart. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Chun, you earned every opportunity through your own effort. I just made sure that effort was recognized. My father always said the best leaders make ordinary soldiers feel extraordinary. Sarah smiled at the wisdom of a young soldier, quoting his father's military philosophy. Your father would be proud of the soldier you've become. As the convoy pulled away from Fort Henderson, Sarah watched familiar buildings disappear in the distance. Within 10 days, she would know whether months of preparation had been sufficient, whether her leadership style could succeed under the ultimate pressure test, and whether Bravo Company could prove that determination and competence mattered more than conventional expectations. The road to Fort Irwin stretched ahead, leading toward challenges that would test everything they had learned about themselves and each other. But Sarah felt confident in her soldiers' abilities and her own readiness for whatever tests awaited them in the Mojave Desert. Behind them lay the safety of routine training and familiar surroundings. Ahead lay the proving ground where reputations were made and broken, where theoretical knowledge became practical application, and where a small company of underestimated soldiers would discover just how much they were capable of achieving. Fort Irwin's harsh landscape stretched endlessly under the scorching California sun as Bravo Company established their temporary base camp. The National Training Center represented the ultimate proving ground for military units, where realistic scenarios and opposing forces tested every aspect of soldier readiness and unit cohesion. Sarah stood at the edge of camp, surveying the arrival of international units that would comprise their multinational task force. British Royal Marines moved with crisp efficiency, their equipment and bearing reflecting decades of expeditionary experience. German Bundeswehr soldiers demonstrated methodical precision that spoke to their reputation for technical excellence. "Impressive," commented Captain James Thornfield of the Royal Marines as he approached Sarah's position. At 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and a confident bearing, he embodied the traditional image of military leadership that Sarah had spent her career challenging. "Captain Thornfield," Sarah replied, extending her hand in greeting. "Welcome to Fort Irwin. Captain Mitchell, I presume. I've heard interesting things about your unit." His tone suggested polite skepticism rather than genuine interest. Sarah recognized the familiar assessment, another officer measuring her potential by conventional standards and finding her lacking. "What kind of interesting things?" "Word is that your company's never deployed, your soldiers are young and inexperienced, and your command structure is unconventional." Sarah smiled tightly. "All accurate. What else have you heard?" Thornfield seemed surprised by her directness. "I was told you graduated Ranger School, which is impressive. Most American officers I've worked with prefer staff positions to infantry command. I prefer challenges to comfort zones." Before Thornfield could respond, Captain Klaus Richter of the German Bundeswehr joined their conversation. Shorter than Thornfield, but carrying himself with unmistakable authority, Richter's reputation for tactical brilliance had reached even American military circles. "Captain Mitchell," Richter said in heavily accented English, "my soldiers are curious about American infantry capabilities. Perhaps we could arrange informal training exchanges?" "Excellent idea," Sarah agreed. "Cross-training will improve coordination during operational scenarios." "What specific capabilities do your soldiers offer?" Thornfield asked, his question carrying subtle challenge. Sarah considered her response carefully, recognizing the opportunity to establish credibility immediately. "My soldiers excel at adaptability and creative problem-solving. They've been trained to operate effectively despite equipment failures, communication breakdowns, and unexpected tactical situations." "Admirable qualities," Richter acknowledged. "But how do you maintain discipline and coordination with such flexible approaches?" "Through shared understanding of mission objectives and individual initiative within established parameters. Rigid adherence to predetermined plans often fails when circumstances change rapidly." Thornfield exchanged glances with Richter, both officers clearly skeptical about American tactical philosophy. "In my experience," Thornfield said diplomatically, "successful operations require precise coordination and strict adherence to proven procedures." "I don't disagree," Sarah replied. "But I'd argue that proven procedures should include adaptation when original plans prove inadequate." The conversation was interrupted by approaching vehicles carrying exercise controllers and international observers. Colonel Patricia Williams emerged from the lead vehicle, followed by British Colonel Michael Harrison and German Colonel Stefan Mueller. "Gentlemen, Captain Mitchell," Colonel Williams called out. "Time for the initial briefing. All company commanders report to the Operations Center immediately." The Operations Center buzzed with activity as staff officers prepared briefing materials and coordinated communication systems. Large displays showed topographical maps of exercise areas, weather forecasts, and unit positions in real time. Colonel Harrison, serving as senior Allied commander, opened the briefing with characteristic British precision. Ladies and gentlemen, Operation Desert Alliance will test multinational coordination under combat conditions. Your task forces will respond to multiple simultaneous threats across varied terrain. He gestured toward detailed maps showing urban areas, mountainous terrain, and open desert. Scenarios include counterinsurgency operations, conventional warfare, and peacekeeping missions. Success requires seamless integration between national units with different equipment, procedures, and tactical philosophies. Colonel Mueller continued the briefing, outlining specific objectives and evaluation criteria. Exercise controllers will monitor communication effectiveness, tactical coordination, and adaptability under pressure. Observer teams from NATO headquarters will assess American leadership of multinational operations. The implications were clear. Sarah's performance would be scrutinized not just by her own chain of command, but by Allied officers whose reports would influence future multinational cooperation. Colonel Williams concluded with operational details and timeline. Phase 1 begins tomorrow with integration training. Phase 2 starts Monday with live-fire exercises. Phase 3 culminates with a 72-hour continuous operation scenario. After dismissal, Sarah gathered with Thornfield and Richter to coordinate preliminary planning. The meeting revealed fundamental differences in tactical approaches that would complicate integration efforts. British doctrine emphasizes methodical preparation and coordinated execution, Thornfield explained. We prefer detailed planning with contingencies for predictable variables. Richter nodded agreement. German procedures prioritize technical excellence and precise timing. Every soldier knows his specific role and executes it flawlessly. American doctrine emphasizes adaptability and individual initiative, Sarah added. We prepare for unpredictable variables that detailed planning can't anticipate. The philosophical differences became apparent immediately during equipment familiarization sessions. British soldiers demonstrated impressive precision with their weapons systems, but showed limited flexibility when standard procedures proved inadequate for specific situations. German soldiers exhibited technical mastery that impressed everyone observing, but their adherence to prescribed methods sometimes prevented creative solutions to unexpected problems. American soldiers initially appeared less polished than their international counterparts, but their willingness to experiment and adapt created innovative approaches that achieved objectives through unconventional means. Private Chen found himself working alongside British Corporal Davies during radio integration training. When standard frequency coordination failed due to equipment incompatibility, Davies called for technical support, while Chen improvised a workaround using spare components. How did you know to try that? Davies asked as Chen's modification enabled clear communication between British and American units. I didn't, Chen admitted. But sitting around waiting for official solutions doesn't accomplish the mission. Similar patterns emerged throughout integration training. American soldiers consistently demonstrated greater adaptability, while Allied soldiers showed superior technical proficiency and procedural discipline. Sarah recognized both the advantages and challenges this presented. Her soldiers could adapt to Allied methods more easily than Allies could adopt American flexibility, but integration required finding common ground that leveraged everyone's strengths. The breakthrough came during a complex navigation exercise when mixed teams encountered deliberately confusing terrain features. British precision proved invaluable for detailed map reading, German technical skills enabled accurate distance measurement, and American adaptability found alternative routes when primary paths proved impassable. Outstanding coordination, observed Master Sergeant Morrison as the mixed teams completed their objectives ahead of schedule. Notice how each national group contributed different capabilities to achieve shared success. That evening, Sarah assembled her squad leaders for assessment and planning. The day's exercises had revealed both promising coordination opportunities and significant integration challenges. "What's your impression of our Allied counterparts?" she asked without preamble. Sergeant Thompson spoke first. "They're good soldiers with excellent training, but they seem uncomfortable when things don't go according to plan. They're definitely more experienced than us, added Sergeant Williams. Their equipment knowledge and tactical procedures are impressive, but they don't improvise well, commented Sergeant Patterson. When standard methods don't work, they seem paralyzed until someone tells them what to do differently. Sarah nodded, recognizing accurate observations. Those differences can be advantages if we coordinate properly. Their experience and precision complement our adaptability and innovation. How do we make that work during actual operations? Asked Thompson. By recognizing that different approaches can achieve the same objectives. Instead of forcing everyone to use identical methods, we coordinate objectives and let each unit contribute their strengths. The following morning brought live-fire exercises designed to test tactical coordination under stress. Mixed teams would engage simulated enemy forces using real ammunition and explosive devices, with safety considerations requiring precise coordination and communication. Sarah found herself commanding a combined team including British Marines and German infantry, with objectives requiring coordinated assault on fortified positions. The complexity of coordinating 3 different tactical doctrines under combat stress would test everything they had learned during integration training. Gentlemen, Sarah addressed her international squad leaders. Our objective is that ridgeline complex. British doctrine suggests methodical approach with supporting fires. German procedures emphasize technical precision and coordinated timing. American tactics prioritize speed and adaptability. Corporal Davies from the Royal Marines raised his hand. Captain, which approach do you prefer? All 3, Sarah replied, surprising everyone. We'll use British methodical preparation for initial planning, German precision for timing and coordination, and American adaptability for responses to unexpected situations. The planning session that followed demonstrated how different tactical philosophies could complement rather than conflict with each other. British experience identified optimal approaches and supporting positions. German technical expertise calculated precise timing for coordinated movement. American flexibility prepared contingencies for equipment failures or enemy adaptations. When the exercise began, the combined team moved with unprecedented coordination. British fire support enabled German precision movement, while American adaptability compensated for unexpected terrain features and enemy responses. The assault succeeded with textbook precision, achieving all objectives within time limits while suffering minimal simulated casualties. Observer teams noted the seamless integration between national units and innovative use of each group's tactical strengths. Exceptional performance, commented Colonel Harrison during the after-action review. I've never seen multinational coordination executed so effectively. Captain Thornfield approached Sarah after the formal evaluation. I owe you an apology, Captain. When we first met, I assumed American tactical flexibility indicated lack of discipline and training. What changed your assessment? Watching your soldiers adapt to our procedures while teaching us to be more flexible. You've created something I didn't think was possible, tactical integration without tactical uniformity. The success generated momentum that carried through subsequent exercises. Mixed teams began requesting assignment to work together again, and informal cross-training sessions developed between American, British, and German soldiers. Private Shin found himself teaching German soldiers radio improvisation techniques while learning Bundeswehr equipment maintenance procedures. The knowledge exchange benefited everyone involved while building personal relationships that transcended national boundaries. More significantly, Allied officers began seeking Sarah's input on tactical problems and operational planning. Her reputation shifted from unknown American captain to innovative leader whose methods produced measurable results. The transformation became evident during the week's final exercise, a complex urban operation requiring coordinated response to multiple simultaneous threats. Sarah's task force received the most challenging assignment, securing a hostile urban area while protecting civilians and capturing high-value targets. This scenario has broken several previous task forces, warned Colonel Mueller during the briefing. Enemy forces use asymmetric tactics designed to exploit coordination weaknesses between Allied units. Sarah studied the intelligence reports and terrain analysis, recognizing the tactical challenges involved. Enemy forces would blend with civilian populations, use improvised explosive devices, and employs psychological warfare designed to create panic and confusion. Captains, Colonel Williams addressed the three company commanders. This operation requires flawless integration and adaptive leadership. Exercise controllers estimate 60% probability of mission failure based on historical performance. The briefing concluded with detailed intelligence updates and coordination requirements. As officers prepared for final planning sessions, Sarah realized this exercise would determine not just her company's reputation, but the viability of her integrated tactical philosophy. That evening, she walked through the temporary camp where American, British, and German soldiers prepared equipment and reviewed procedures together. The cultural barriers that had seemed insurmountable a week earlier had dissolved into professional respect and personal friendships. Sergeant Thompson approached as she completed her inspection. "Ma'am, the men are ready. More importantly, they're confident." "Why confident?" "Because they've seen what we can accomplish when we work together instead of competing against each other. These British and German soldiers aren't obstacles anymore. They're force multipliers." Sarah nodded, recognizing the fundamental shift in perspective that separated successful multinational operations from failed ones. "How do you assess our chances tomorrow?" Thompson smiled grimly. "I think some people are about to be very surprised by what a small, inexperienced American company can accomplish when properly motivated." "What do you mean?" "I mean we're not small, inexperienced, or just American anymore. We're a multinational task force with capabilities none of us possessed individually." As Sarah prepared for sleep, she reflected on the week's transformation. Her soldiers had not just adapted to working with foreign allies. They had created something entirely new. Integration without uniformity, coordination without conformity, and effectiveness that exceeded the sum of individual capabilities. Tomorrow would bring the ultimate test of everything they had learned and built together. Success would validate her leadership philosophy and establish new standards for multinational cooperation. Failure would reinforce traditional skepticism about American ability to lead international military operations. But as she listened to the quiet conversations between American, British, and German soldiers sharing stories and tactical knowledge, Sarah felt confident about their prospects. They had become something their individual national doctrines had never envisioned. A truly integrated multinational fighting force capable of adapting to any challenge. The question was whether that integration would survive the stress of complex operations under maximum pressure. Tomorrow would provide the answer, and Sarah intended to ensure that answer demonstrated the power of adaptive leadership and collaborative strength. Dawn broke over Fort Irwin with the harsh brilliance that only desert sunrises could deliver, casting long shadows across the staging area where Task Force Alpha prepared for their final exercise. Sarah stood before the assembled multinational force, studying faces that reflected determination mixed with nervous anticipation. The previous week's integration training had forged these soldiers into something unprecedented, a truly cohesive multinational unit. American adaptability, British precision, and German technical excellence had merged into capabilities that exceeded any individual national doctrine. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah addressed the combined formation, "today we face Operation Desert Storm, the culminating exercise designed to test everything we've learned together." She gestured toward the urban training facility visible in the distance, a sprawling complex of buildings that replicated Middle Eastern cities where modern military operations typically occurred. Enemy forces occupy a civilian area with hostages, weapons caches, and high-value targets. Our mission requires surgical precision to minimize civilian casualties while neutralizing threats and capturing intelligence. The scenario represented the most challenging type of modern military operation, urban warfare where enemies exploited civilian populations and infrastructure to complicate traditional tactical responses. Colonel Harrison approached as soldiers dispersed for final equipment checks and tactical planning. "Captain Mitchell, I must confess continued amazement at your unit's transformation. 1 week ago, I questioned whether multinational integration was achievable. What changed your assessment, Colonel?" "Watching your soldiers teach my Marines to think creatively while learning our procedural discipline. You've created tactical synthesis I didn't believe possible." Sarah nodded appreciatively, but Her attention focused on approaching vehicles carrying exercise controllers and international observers. Today's performance would be scrutinized by senior officers whose evaluations would influence multinational military cooperation for years. Master Sergeant Morrison emerged from the lead vehicle, followed by NATO observers from 6 different countries. Their presence added weight to an already high-pressure situation. Task Force Alpha, Morrison announced, you have 8 hours to complete all mission objectives. Exercise controllers will monitor every action and decision. Communication intercepts indicate enemy forces expect traditional American tactics and have prepared countermeasures accordingly. The implication was clear: conventional approaches would likely fail, requiring innovative solutions that leverage the task force's unique multinational capabilities. Sarah gathered her squad leaders and international counterparts for final coordination. The planning session would determine whether theoretical integration could function under operational pressure. Gentlemen, our intelligence indicates enemy forces occupy 3 separate compounds connected by underground tunnels, she began, spreading detailed maps across the planning table. Corporal Davies from the Royal Marines studied the layouts carefully. Traditional assault would require simultaneous attacks on all 3 positions to prevent enemy withdrawal through tunnel networks. Agreed, added Sergeant Kruger from the German Bundeswehr. But simultaneous attacks demand precise timing and flawless communication between separated elements. Thompson leaned forward, studying terrain features surrounding the target area. Ma'am, what if we don't try to prevent enemy movement between compounds? What if we use their tunnel network against them? The question sparked immediate interest from international soldiers who recognized creative thinking when they heard it. Explain your concept, Sergeant. Instead of attacking all 3 compounds simultaneously, we attack one and force enemy concentration into the tunnel system. Then, we control the tunnels and capture concentrated enemy forces in confined spaces. Richter smiled approvingly. Elegant solution. German technical expertise could seal tunnel exits while British precision controls entry points. And American adaptability handles whatever unexpected situations develop underground, added Thornfield. The plan that emerged represented true tactical synthesis, using each national group's strengths to achieve objectives impossible through conventional approaches. British reconnaissance would identify tunnel systems, German engineering would control access points, and American flexibility would handle close-quarters combat in confined spaces. Outstanding coordination, Sarah concluded. This approach leverages our combined capabilities while compensating for individual limitations. 2 hours later, Task Force Alpha moved toward their objective with confidence born of thorough preparation and proven teamwork. Mixed national teams moved in coordinated formation, their communication seamless despite different accents and technical terminology. Private Chin found himself paired with British Private Thompson and German Private Weber, a combination that represented the multinational integration they had achieved. Their assignment involved infiltrating the primary compound, while main assault forces created diversions. Movement to your left, Thompson whispered through their shared communication system, his British accent now familiar rather than foreign. Weber confirmed the observation using German military terminology that Chun had learned during integration training. Zwei Feindlichkraft, position Gebäude 3. Copy, 2 enemy forces, building 3. Chun acknowledged, demonstrating the linguistic adaptation that made coordination possible. The infiltration proceeded flawlessly, with each soldier contributing skills learned from their international teammates. Chin's technical knowledge enabled silent communication system bypassing, Thompson's reconnaissance training identified optimal approach routes, and Weber's engineering expertise neutralized security systems. Meanwhile, the main assault force implemented their tunnel control strategy with precision that impressed exercise controllers. British fire teams sealed designated tunnel exits, while German engineers placed demolition charges at strategic choke points. Alpha 6, this is Bravo lead. Thompson's voice crackled through the radio as his team engaged enemy forces at the primary compound. Hostiles are withdrawing into tunnel system as planned. Sarah monitored multiple team communications while coordinating overall tactical movement. Copy, Bravo lead. Charlie team, confirm tunnel control status. Alpha 6, Charlie actual, responded Sergeant Kruger. All primary tunnel exits sealed. Enemy forces concentrated in central underground complex. The plan was working perfectly, but Sarah recognized that successful operations often faced unexpected complications just when everything seemed under control. She remained alert for changing circumstances that would require adaptive responses. The complication came 30 minutes later when exercise controllers introduced an unscripted scenario change. Civilian hostages discovered in the underground tunnel complex, requiring immediate rescue without compromising ongoing operations. All stations, Alpha 6, Sarah transmitted immediately. New intelligence indicates civilian hostages in tunnel complex. Shift to hostage rescue protocol while maintaining tactical objectives. The scenario change tested everything they had learned about adaptive coordination. Hostage rescue required completely different tactics than enemy capture operations, with success depending on speed, precision, and minimal use of explosive devices. Alpha 6, this is Chun, came an unexpected transmission from the infiltration team. We have eyes on hostage location. Mixed civilian and military captives, approximately 12 individuals. Sarah felt pride mixed with concern as she realized her youngest soldier was providing critical intelligence under pressure. Chun, report enemy disposition around hostage area. 6 guards with automatic weapons, positioned to use hostages as human shields if attacked directly. Recommend diversionary assault, while smaller team approaches from tunnel maintenance access. The tactical assessment demonstrated Chin's growth from uncertain private to confident soldier capable of independent analysis under stress. Outstanding work, Chun. Maintain observation and await coordination with main assault elements. Sarah quickly coordinated modified assault plans with international team leaders. The hostage situation required British precision for long-range neutralization, German technical expertise for breaching operations, and American adaptability for close-quarters hostage rescue. All teams execute modified assault in 60 seconds, Sarah transmitted. British Overwatch eliminates perimeter guards. German breaching team creates entry points. American rescue team secures hostages. The coordinated assault unfolded with textbook precision. British marksmen neutralized guards with simulated precision fire. German engineers breached walls using shaped charges that created entry points without endangering hostages, and American soldiers secured captives through rapid movement and individual initiative. Within 15 minutes, all hostages were extracted safely, while primary tactical objectives remained on schedule for completion. Exceptional adaptation, observed Colonel Mueller, who had been monitoring operations from the command post. Most units would have been paralyzed by unexpected hostage complications. But the exercise wasn't finished. Enemy forces had regrouped in the final compound, using their knowledge of American tactical doctrine to prepare defensive positions specifically designed to counter conventional assault techniques. Alpha 6, this is Recon Team, reported Sergeant Williams. Enemy forces have anticipated traditional American infantry tactics. Prepared positions indicate they expect frontal assault with supporting fires. Sarah studied intelligence reports while considering options. Traditional tactics would likely result in high casualties and possible mission failure. Exactly the outcome exercise designers intended to test adaptive leadership capabilities. All station commanders, report to Alpha 6 position for tactical coordination, she transmitted. The planning session brought together American, British, and German leaders to develop solutions that enemy forces couldn't anticipate. Their discussion revealed how multinational perspectives could identify opportunities that single national doctrines might miss. Enemy preparation assumes American tactics, Thornfield observed. They haven't considered British infiltration techniques or German precision assault methods. More importantly, added Richter, they don't expect coordinated multinational approaches that combine all 3 tactical philosophies. Thompson leaned over the map, studying enemy positions with the insight of a veteran non-commissioned officer. Ma'am, what if we don't assault the compound at all? What if we make them come to us? The suggestion sparked immediate tactical discussion as leaders recognized the potential of forcing enemy movement into prepared positions rather than attacking defended ones. Elaborate, Sergeant. We establish overwatch positions around the compound and Convince enemy forces that remaining defensive will result in capture or elimination. Force them to attempt breakout. Then, engage them in open terrain where our combined capabilities provide maximum advantage. The plan required sophisticated psychological operations to convince defending forces that their position was untenable, followed by coordinated response when they attempted to escape. British reconnaissance can provide detailed intelligence on enemy movements, Thornfield offered. German precision fires can control escape routes. American adaptability can respond to unexpected enemy actions. Sarah approved the modified plan, recognizing how it leveraged their multinational strengths while avoiding enemy defensive preparations. Execute in phases. Phase 1. Establish overwatch positions. Phase 2. Psychological operations to force enemy movement. Phase 3. Coordinated response to enemy breakout attempt. The operation unfolded exactly as planned, demonstrating tactical sophistication that surprised even experienced exercise controllers. Psychological pressure convinced enemy forces to attempt escape. Coordinated fires channeled their movement into predetermined kill zones, and adaptive responses captured fleeing forces with minimal simulated casualties. Mission complete, Sarah transmitted as the final enemy forces surrendered. All objectives achieved, hostages rescued, intelligence captured, and area secured. Exercise controllers confirmed successful completion of all tactical objectives within time limits, with performance levels exceeding evaluation standards in every measured category. Task Force Alpha. Morrison announced over the communication system, outstanding performance. Exercise complete. Return to base for debriefing. The return journey provided opportunity for soldiers to reflect on their achievements while exercise controllers compiled evaluation reports. American, British, and German soldiers traveled together, their conversations mixing languages and tactical terminology in ways that demonstrated genuine integration. Private Chin found himself riding with international soldiers who had become genuine teammates rather than foreign allies. "Chun," commented British Private Thompson, "your tactical analysis during the hostage situation was brilliant. Where did you learn to think like that?" "From Captain Mitchell and all of you," Chun replied honestly. 6 weeks ago, I would have waited for orders instead of providing independent assessment. "What changed?" asked German Private Weber. "Learning that good soldiers contribute ideas instead of just following them. Captain Mitchell taught us that initiative and adaptability are more valuable than blind obedience." The debriefing session brought together all participants for comprehensive evaluation and lessons learned discussion. Colonel Williams opened with overall assessment results that exceeded everyone's expectations. "Ladies and gentlemen, Task Force Alpha achieved complete mission success with performance ratings in the 95th percentile of all units evaluated at the National Training Center." Applause erupted from assembled soldiers who recognized the significance of their achievement. Sarah felt pride not in personal vindication, but in watching soldiers who had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. More importantly, Colonel Harrison continued, "You've demonstrated that multinational integration can enhance rather than complicate tactical effectiveness. NATO observers are recommending your coordination methods as standard procedure for future multinational operations." The recognition represented validation of everything Sarah had believed about adaptive leadership and collaborative strength. But her attention focused on her soldiers' reactions rather than official accolades. Thompson approached as the formal debriefing concluded. "Ma'am, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you gratitude for teaching me that leadership isn't about size or volume. It's about competence and character. You taught yourself, Sergeant. I just provided opportunity for you to discover what you were already capable of achieving." Similar conversations occurred throughout the group as soldiers reflected on their transformation from skeptical individuals to confident team members. British and German soldiers expressed appreciation for American adaptability, while American soldiers acknowledged benefits of international precision and discipline. But the most significant moment came when Private Chun approached Sarah privately after other soldiers had departed. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Chun, you earned every opportunity through your own determination and competence. I know, but you created an environment where determination and competence mattered more than age or experience. You proved that good leaders make ordinary soldiers feel extraordinary. Sarah smiled at hearing her father's military wisdom quoted by a young soldier who had discovered his own potential through challenging circumstances. Your father would be proud of the soldier you've become, Chun. I hope so, ma'am. But, more than that, I hope I can provide the same kind of leadership for other soldiers that you provided for me. As Task Force Alpha prepared for return to their home stations, Sarah realized that their week at Fort Irwin had achieved more than successful exercise completion. They had proven that underestimated soldiers could exceed every expectation when properly led and appropriately challenged. The transformation extended beyond tactical capabilities to fundamental changes in perspective. Soldiers who had arrived as skeptical individuals departed as confident leaders, carrying lessons about adaptive thinking and collaborative strength that would influence their entire military careers. Colonel Williams approached for final discussion as equipment loading continued around them. Captain Mitchell, I've received preliminary reports from NATO observers. They're describing your unit's performance as revolutionary rather than evolutionary. What do you mean, Colonel? Previous multinational exercises achieved coordination through standardization, forcing different units to adopt common procedures. You achieved integration through synthesis, combining different capabilities to create enhanced effectiveness. Sarah nodded, recognizing the distinction. Standardization eliminates differences. Synthesis leverages them. Exactly. And the implications extend far beyond single exercises. Your methods could reshape how multinational forces operate in future conflicts. The recognition was gratifying, but Sarah's satisfaction came from watching soldiers board transportation vehicles with confidence and pride they hadn't possessed 2 weeks earlier. Individual transformation mattered more than institutional recognition. As the convoy departed Fort Irwin, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them from skeptical company to proven multinational task force. The harsh desert landscape that had initially seemed intimidating now appeared conquered, a proving ground where they had discovered their true capabilities. Thompson approached from the rear of the transport vehicle, carrying a small American flag that had been flown during their final exercise. Ma'am, the soldiers wanted you to have this. They said it represents everything we proved together. Sarah accepted the flag with genuine emotion, recognizing the symbol of respect and gratitude from soldiers who had become more than just her responsibility. They had become her legacy. Tell them I'm proud to have served with every one of them, she replied. They proved that determination and character are more powerful than size and volume. Yes, ma'am. And they proved that good leaders make ordinary soldiers extraordinary. As Fort Irwin disappeared behind them, Sarah looked ahead toward Fort Henderson and the future challenges awaiting Bravo Company. They were returning as different soldiers than those who had departed, confident, capable, and proven under the ultimate pressure test. The underestimated small army captain had indeed been challenged by those who doubted her capabilities. But, rather than breaking under that pressure, she and her soldiers had transformed challenge into opportunity, skepticism into strength, and limitation into liberation. They had proven that the most dangerous opponents are often the ones people underestimate, and that true leadership creates extraordinary achievement through ordinary soldiers who refuse to accept other people's limitations. The road home stretched ahead, leading toward new challenges and opportunities to apply everything they had learned about themselves and each other. But, regardless of what future tests awaited them, Sarah knew that Bravo Company would face them with confidence earned through proving that competence and character matter more than conventional expectations. They had become something more than just soldiers. They had become leaders who understood that underestimation was simply another obstacle to overcome on the path to extraordinary achievement.